committee, and the only Democrat who voted for it was Chris Dodd, and this was the biggest mistake the Democrats made. He said, if there is a public option that comes out of this legislation, all members of Congress must take it. And all the Republicans on the committee voted for it, and only Chris Dodd voted for it. And all the Democrats should have been gung-ho behind that. Yeah. And you know, he was
well, there you go.
I know, he was just calling their bluff. And this is why, to extend your concept, what we should do, you know, if you want to pass a piece of legislation quickly, pass a piece of legislation requiring them all to wear NASCAR uniforms with the logos of the corporations that donate to...
I have a piece of legislation for it. Here's a piece of legislation that'll never pass. How about a little like federal judges or something like that, that legislators, elected officials, members of Congress, if they've taken any money from an industry, they have to recuse themselves from any legislation, whether in committee or in the General Assembly. They can't vote on it.
Because they wouldn't be there half the time.
Act caucus, sorry, can't vote on it because you've been taking money from the health industry. So, you know, run your meetings.
Yeah, it works for judges.
Yeah, David, I thought your question was going in the direction, if I come back to it, of some of the national security area issues or civil rights issues where look, I want to, and let's be as positive as we're as critical in where it's deserved. The fact that we as a nation, because of Barack Obama, do not torture anymore, thank God for Barack Obama. The fact that...
Except Bagram still exists.
Yeah.
Sorry? Except Bagram still exists.
Yes, right. And the fact, but Gitmo will not as of January, which again, and he did that right away, by the way. He didn't hesitate on that. But where I think he has lagged in some of these national security issues is in too many areas, he has followed the Bush doctrine, and is still the Bush doctrine, refusing to release the photos of the torture that took place, which I believe, if you really want to show the world, we think this is evil, we'll never do it again. This is the previous administration, he should have put those out there. The fact that he would not release all of the documents, and the fact that today, yet, Barack Obama says we will not prosecute George Bush and Dick Cheney. Well, why the hell not? Well, they're war criminals. I'm sorry, they're war criminals. They broke the law, we know it. They knew torture was illegal, they ordered it, they deliberately broke the law, and they took us into a war based on a whole pack of lies. If that's not a war crime, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Let me ask the question that somebody has on that very subject.
I mean, why not go after them, even no matter who they are, if they broke the law that
we
should
got a
apply?
question from Helmer in Bellingham. He says, I'm incensed Nancy Pelosi and Reid have not been impeached for obstruction of justice in the matter of the Bush administration. Their flimsy excuse of worrying about disrupting the election is now passed, and still nothing has happened. Is there still a strong...
Yeah.
Just point the microphone right at your mouth and it'll work just fine.
It's important. I'm going to do this one right at my mouth.
Yeah, you can pass that right at your mouth. It works.
You can pass that back to Mike. Tom has given me a lesson here, and I've... well, I'm going to try. I'm going to read this again. From Helmer in Bellingham, and this is just right on top of what you were saying, Bill, but he's putting it right at Pelosi and Reid. Why haven't they been impeached for obstruction of justice in the matter of the Bush administration? Their flimsy excuse of not wanting to disrupt the election is now passed, and still nothing has happened. The one thing I wonder, well, how many people do you think that represents? Are Democrats, the people who voted for Barack Obama, unhappy today because there have not been prosecutions of war crimes?
I think so.
What would you do?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. One of the reasons that I endorsed in my little inch of the universe Barack Obama was on the belief that once he was elected, that not him but his Justice Department would begin a thorough investigation, and that's one of the reasons they withhold those photographs, because without an investigation, releasing the photographs is just torture porn. That's step one. Release the photographs. That lays your foundation for indicting these sons of bitches. So I'm disappointed that we haven't used. I realize the situation's entirely different. I'm not trying to trivialize anything here, but we should have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, not totally unlike what happened in South Africa. Different situation. A lot of people died in South Africa. I'm not trying to draw a complete comparison. But how do you move on until you settle the mess and take responsibility for it that we've done for the past 8 years? And we've done it. So that's the frustration I've
No, I agree. I mean, you know, I've said this, that I don't think this really should be a partisan issue. They keep saying, oh, this is a partisan witch hunt. You know, I think people have heard me talk about, my dad ran with Goldwater in '64, but he was a prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials. And I can't imagine he or Barry Goldwater saying it's okay as America for us to have ordered torture, for us to have gotten into an illegal war based on a bunch of lies, and we just pretend it didn't happen. That's not the way the world works, you know?
Well, I fear that the answer to this question is going to probably always come back to the same thing about when we're going to be like the people in France and take to the streets. But this isn't just a problem in the White House, it's also a problem in Congress. How do Democrats get Congress to move on this one question? Let's deal with the question of war crimes. Is it even realistic to think that Nancy Pelosi and those people who are in charge in the House would actually go down that road?
No. It's not realistic to think that. They've made themselves very clear. That is not going to happen with the current Democratic Party leadership in Congress. So, what's the answer? New leadership?
Somebody might want to point out to them, though, that we've signed international treaties that not only allow but oblige us to prosecute war criminals.
Exactly.
There was another Republican president a while ago
exactly.
who
I was going to say,
share
Ron,
my,
I can't believe
share
I
my
dropped
name.
my dad's name with you sitting here. Anyway.
But you know,
won't the world hold us accountable if we don't hold ourselves accountable?
We've signed UN treaties. My father happened to have signed one of those UN treaties. He called torture an abomination and was very proud of the fact that we are now obliged and on board with prosecuting people or sending them to a country that would prosecute them. We are obliged to do this under international law. And if somebody would point out to the members of Congress that this is the case, perhaps they would start honoring those treaty obligations.
Well, the other thing, let me, if I may, add one more thing. There's a guy here, Bob Alexander, tonight, who took the time to work with Vince Bugliosi to get Bugliosi's book, Prosecuting George W. Bush for Murder. Bob and his wife, Arminda, and some of their friends, Jude, and some other people, sat down and cross-referenced every single American soldier who had been killed in Iraq with their county district attorneys. They then cut a deal with Bugliosi's publisher to get 2,200 copies of the book at a very reduced rate. Then they went on the internet and raised money. And then they sent a copy with a cover letter to every single prosecutor in the United States who has the legal power to indict Bush. An indictment of Bush would open the whole thing up. And how many of these 2,200 have responded? One, who said maybe next year. Now that's the situation we're in. We don't need Pelosi and Reid. We need somebody on a local level who has a legal basis to bring these sons of bitches to trial. And the horrible part, David, it's not happening. So what do? I have no idea. Bob's here tonight. And
where is Bob, by the way?
Where's Bob Alexander? Where are you, Bob? Oh, there he is, right there, Bob Alexander.
Good on you, Bob.
And I mean, I want to tell you, I just want to say one more thing. He wrote me emails during the time he was doing that about how he had to confront every single dead American, their name, their address, every book he sent out, every letter he wrote to a county attorney. He's been there. He went right to the abyss. And who was it, Kierkegaard or whoever, who said, you look into the abyss is going to look into you. And I watched him, in a manner of speaking, because, you know, he lives here, I live in Atlanta. But I watched the shit he went through, and his wife, and his friends, as they did this. And what's been the result? The result has been, I think Bob Alexander's come to the conclusion, it's fucking over. It's over. If nobody will take the time to do what we need to do in this country, what are we going to do? If I were a county prosecutor, I know what I'd do.
Well, I mean, that's the thing I don't get, the argument that, oh, this is in the past, we need to move on. Well, all crime is in the past, unless you're in the fucking Minority Report. Yeah. Unless you're Tom Cruise, all crime happened in the past. I don't even get that argument, do you?
No, I don't either, but I think it's worth pointing out that the responsibility here for enforcing the law rests with the Attorney General of the United States. I'd love to beat up on Nancy Pelosi, but she ain't the Attorney General. I mean, they ought to have congressional hearings, but the person that ought to be doing this right now is Eric Holder. And Nancy Pelosi, by the way, has called for a truth commission.